A warning that Taiwan's relations with China are at their lowest point in 40 years as Taipei pushes for a bigger budget for defense purchases. And as those tensions soar, the U.S. National Security Advisor is holding talks with China's top diplomat. Also on the agenda, the thorny issue of trade. Well, let's get a closer look now with Dr. Chong Ja Ian from the National University of Singapore. Dr. Chong, what do both sides hope to achieve with this meeting in Zurich?
I suppose what both sides want is some way to maintain their relations, to not let any tensions escalate out of control. I think that would be at the top of the agenda. Then things like trade, issues of Taiwan, and so on and so forth will follow.
And Dr. Chong, what will China take away from Joe Biden's comments on the Taiwan agreement?
So I think Joe Biden somewhat misspoke. There is no agreement, so to speak, but there is a one China policy as opposed to China's one China principle. And that one China policy for the U.S. is essentially that they will agree to disagree with Beijing, and they predicate so Washington predicates not recognizing Taiwan diplomatically in an official capacity on China not using force or threatening to use force to move on Taiwan. So I suppose with the rising tensions in the Straits, the question is whether China will hold up to the expectations or understanding that the United States has with them. So I suppose when Biden mentioned the so-called Taiwan agreement, he's referring to this understanding. It's not a formal agreement.
And Taiwan certainly will be watching the meeting closely. What do they want to see come out of it?
So I suppose what Taiwan would like is some signal to Beijing to ease off on the pressure, to respect Taiwan's position, to respect that it has its autonomy, it has its space, and for China to back off somewhat. And whether Washington will be able to deliver, whether Beijing is willing to listen, no one knows at this point. I doubt that there will be much progress at this meeting. There probably will be at most some initial moves that could sort of be in a positive direction, but there will have to be much more follow-up before we can really tell.
Well, part of the backdrop of all of this, Dr. Chong, is also trade. It's a major point of contention between these two big countries, especially with the U.S. saying that it's not likely to move away from those tariffs. They continued to linger even under the Biden administration.
So that's one point where there actually is, one of the rare points where there actually is bipartisan consensus in the United States. And that is the feeling that China has not been playing fair on trade, that it's been violating things like intellectual property on the U.S. And so I think there will be a lot of consistency in the U.S. position to push China to at least live up to the phase one deal that they've had. And there also is the claim right now that China has not fully lived up, right, to the phase one deal that they made with the Trump administration. So I think the purchases that China was supposed to make now is maybe about 60% of it. So I suppose the Biden administration would really like to push China forward to meet its commitments. Whether China feels compelled to do so, given its own domestic economic pressures, I guess we'll see.
Many thanks for your thoughts, Dr. Chong Ja Ian. He is the Associate Professor at the Department of Political Science at the National University of Singapore.